Thank you for inviting me to speak at the International Conference on Volatile Consumer Behavior and Marketing. I'm sorry I cannot be there in person. My title of presentation is Marketing to India's Consumers in Transition. While we'll have a lot of volatility, but there is a predictability in volatility, and that is the theme I will use and suggest what we can do in marketing to cope with this change and the volatility. Here are some facts and figures. International Monetary Fund estimates that India's GDP, based on purchasing power parity, will exceed $11 trillion in 2019. It will be the third largest economy based on PPP after China, which will be 27 trillion, and USA, that will be 21 trillion. Out of the total economy, the consumer market in India is estimated to be around $5 trillion. In addition to food, clothing, and housing, India is one of the largest consumer markets for smartphones, appliances like refrigerators, for example, and the consumer electronics. It is also a very large market for motorcycles. I think for a two-wheeler, it is number one in the world, scooters, and automobiles. However, the largest percentage of the consumer market is in the services sector, and these range from banking to broadband, and from household support services to education and healthcare. More than 60% of India's consumer market is served by unbranded products and services and by the unorganized sector. India's consumer market is rapidly changing from unbranded to branded consumption and from unorganized to the organized sector, including and because of probably online and e-commerce procurement. So what's the fundamental shift? As I mentioned, right now, procurement and consumption is all about unbranded products and services sold in the unorganized sector. That is the current reality. As the chart shows, we are going to go more and more toward branded products and services and more in an organized sector. What are the forces that are driving this fundamental shift? The first and the key driver is there are more choices since the economic reforms of 1991, which many people also claim as India's second independence. When it comes to automobiles, appliances, garments, anything you think about it. I remember the days of license Raj. I left India in 1961. There were no choices, and whatever choices you had to wait for 7 years, 8 years, 10 years just to get a telephone line or to buy a scooter. Today it's just the opposite. There are so many choices, most of them more and more branded choices, especially in durable goods. Food, beverages may be still more unbranded. Beverages are becoming more and more branded also, but this is the radical change. I think that's a key factor in terms of people having more choices, and therefore their expectations are high. Equally important, maybe more so than the economic reforms of 1991, is the digital revolution. None of us expected India to be such a large market for cell phones itself, feature phones at one time, and now smartphones. We have a very large now mobile internet because of the 4G platform on a national level, which is likely to become 5G very soon. And of course, out of nowhere, e-commerce business has grown because we seem to have the supply chain in place and also the delivery to the doorsteps, including cash on payment, COD, or cash on delivery, I guess, as we call it, which is very important. Companies like Flipkart, as well as payment systems like PTM, are bringing about a radical change in the way consumers seek information, in the ways consumers spread information word of mouth, in the ways consumers procure things, and in the way consumers consume things even. Third is the huge generational discontinuity. Today, my estimates are running that the generation gap is only 8 years now. So the older sister cannot relate to the younger sister or vice versa. I call this new generation as the call center couple, where the boy meets the girl while they're going through college or even in high school nowadays, and they want to get married. They would like to start their own home, which means they are the first time buyers of everything in the marketplace. They would rather not live in their parents' home, which is a typical older way of growing together, extended family as we used to call it. We are clearly becoming a nucleus family more and more. And this call center couple prides in their privacy and freedom. The amount of money they earn is not sufficient, surprisingly, compared to their expenses rising. And of course, when they have children, the expenses mount even more. But that is the new reality. It is new India, new modern consumer in the marketplace. Outsourcing comes home because of that. This couple has no desire nor capability to learn cooking, cleaning, and childcare. So it's all outsourced. We thought outsourcing was American companies outsourcing IT services to India or accounting services, but the biggest outsourcing is in India itself, which is what I call home services being outsourced. Especially eating out becoming very popular, prepared foods coming home is becoming popular, and of course, cleaning, laundry, etc. is all becoming outsourced. Specifically in that call center couple where both husband and wife has to work to survive. Number 5, growth of rural markets. I think this is very permanent change. The gap between the urban and the rural, especially in terms of having the desire to have branded products, is narrowing more and more. Just like what happened in America with the growth of Walmart, which began in very small towns, therefore the rural population could have access to world-class brands at affordable prices. I think it is happening in India. But in India, it is even more than that. Because if you take a software engineer, typical 10 plus 2 plus 3, he or she goes to Bangalore or Delhi, any one of the big metro areas, has to get earned money, maybe 60,000-70,000 rupees a month. And at the end of the month, there is no positive cash flow. Has to pay paying guest rent if he's single, which may be 15,000-20,000 rupees a month. It turns out that, of course, they're very contemporary, modern, can't live without smartphones and the internet and all of the social media activities. Of course, they are going in the evening out quite a lot. Nightclubs is a necessity almost in their mind. So their expenses are much greater than their discretionary income after TDS. Contrast that to a crane operator in the port of Mundra. He is typically 10 plus 2 plus vocational technical training how to operate the crane in the port of Mundra. He earns now 85,000 rupees a month. Usually married, has a wife who is a homemaker, takes care of the father and the mother or the in-laws. Interestingly, the man grew up in the family. There is no rent cost. 1/3 of the income goes in paying rent in metro areas. This person, crane operator, has none of those costs. His discretionary income is therefore much greater than the software engineer. He has a buying power, especially for discretionary activities such as a motorcycle, for example, or smartphones, or investing in the child's future once they have a child. So rural-urban divide, not only from a digital revolution and access viewpoint, not only from an e-commerce viewpoint, but also in terms of aspirations, desires, is getting narrower and narrower. The gap is not as great as it used to be. Even in the rural markets, when I say rural, I don't mean really villages, but I mean second tier, third tier, fourth tier towns and cities. Everybody is going from unbranded to branded consumption. In this transition, therefore, how should the marketer behave? The traditional loyalties may not be there anymore. So marketer has to go out of their way to not only attract new customers, but equally important, retain existing customers. And here are several possibilities or recommendations. The first and a major one is to offer loyalty programs. In other words, the marketer has to learn that customer lifetime value is more important to measure than a transactional value. Over the life of a consumer or a household, the amount of money they will spend is enormous, and I can actually offer multiple products as a one-stop shop, as Amazon does, for example. Flipkart can do it, or a large big bazaar can do it, physical stores, Metro can do it, etc. But the key notion is that I need to invest in loyalty programs so that customer lifetime value can be enhanced, and therefore I'm more interested in the share of wallet, as we call it, as opposed to market share. Second, equally important is really marketers will have to invest into omni-channel presence. Anyway, the consumer wants to get the product delivered. They can come and pick it up in the store, they can shop around and buy in the store, or you can deliver at home, for example. I call it the pizza industry model. I can dine in, or I can pick it up, or it is delivered at my home. Third point, I think very important, is to separate consumers from customers. Retailers are not just the channel and therefore margin collapsers. Retailers should be treated as your customers. If you're a manufacturer, the power of the retailer is enormous now, and one has to reconcile, one has to actually admit and accept power of the retailer. Many products today a retailer offers is sold, unbranded products even. In the US, I can tell you the largest diamond seller in America now is Walmart and its subsidiary Sam's Wholesale Club. Think about it. Diamonds are unbranded. Therefore, it's the reputation and the integrity of the retailer that people are betting on. We had never imagined that diamonds will be sold at mass merchandisers like Walmart, a discount store, as opposed to jewelry shops or chains like Zale, for example. That's mind-boggling change. But because people trust the retailer more so than a manufacturer now. That's ironic almost. But given that power of the retailer, and I'm told that a SKU, let's say in luggage, a soft luggage, one piece only, unbranded, if Walmart offers it in America, it is selling better than Samsonite. And I don't think it's limited to Walmart in America. It is Walmart in Canada, Walmart in Mexico, Walmart in China, makes no difference. And it will be true of Big Bazaar, Metro in India. Power of the retailer is something that manufacturers have to reconcile with. Next point, automate the supply chain. I think generally in marketing, we have underinvested in IT infrastructure. We may have basically physical infrastructure, maybe financing infrastructure, but IT infrastructure tends to usually lag, especially on the supply chain, because nowadays more orders come online, which means it's a demand-driven procurement or demand-driven supply chain. So supply chain automation is very important because then you know where the goods are in transition, and therefore lots of inefficiencies of holding, friction, etc. is minimized. Embrace e-commerce. There is no way out. No matter who you are today, e-commerce is the future. whether it's a web-based or app-based, whether it's a marketplace, for example, an electronic marketplace like Alibaba or Amazon, or it is actually a given store or a manufacturer's own e-commerce. Whatever it is, e-commerce is the future, even in countries like India, where it is getting more and more automated, especially because smartphones are so universal, payment systems are so universal now within India. Leverage social media. More and more, word of mouth will be no longer neighbor talking to neighbors or college students talking to college students. It is going to be online. Online word of mouth is a very important amplifier, influencers, opinion makers, and today the traditional theory of opinion maker is no longer valid, where a handful of people actually first adopt the product and then they influence the masses. Here, peer-to-peer influence is as important as opinion leadership. I believe in India, sales promotion will have to spend more money on sales promotions than just on advertising. Like in the US, where sales promotion dollars are actually much greater than the advertising dollars. Not only advertising dollars are shifting from print and television in India to more and more digital online, but I think one has to invest heavily on sales promotions. Sales promotions do matter all over the world. People love sale. So one can create sales on a festival basis. And India has more festivals and more religious holidays because it is such a diverse country. It is more diverse linguistically, religiously, culturally, no matter how we look at it, than all of Europe, continental Europe. And therefore, you always have some event or a festival going on someplace in the country. I think using those festivals to create an excitement and promotion will become more and more necessary to latch on to the consumers that you have. And last point is brand everything. And especially branding services will be even more important than just branding the products. Most of the consumption, as I mentioned, is unbranded, and therefore converting unbranded to branded consumption is key to future growth in India. So let me conclude. India's consumer market is about $5 trillion based on purchasing power parity. Most of the consumption so far is unbranded products and services, and most of that is bought, procured through unorganized retailers. A number of forces are driving this change from unbranded consumption to branded consumption, and from unorganized sector to organized sector. Digital revolution has enabled e-commerce, which has reduced the urban-rural divide. In fact, most of the e-commerce platforms people will tell you that better markets are the second tier, third tier, fourth tier towns, because there is no other choice in many ways. There are no large supermarkets, there are no large department stores. This is easier way to access, and delivery is last mile delivery is possible. The real market growth opportunities are in tier 2 to 4 towns and even in rural India. To succeed in this transition, marketers will have to convert, as I mentioned, unbranded consumption to branded consumption. They will have to treat retailers as customers, invest in loyalty programs, and automate their supply chain. Social media and online word of mouth is key, in addition to omni-channel and sales promotions. Thank you very much, and I know the conference will go very well. My best wishes.